Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're back in Standard playing another deck based on the new Sacred and Profane cards. So let's go take a look at the deck. So today we'll be playing a Scoia'Tael Call of Harmony deck that uses one of the key cards from the new Sacred and Profane expansion. That card being Denna, who starts off in one form, and then after you win a round, she transforms into a card that has slightly different abilities. In general, either way, she is supporting Harmony, which is what we're trying to do in this deck, but we actually prefer her initial form, so that means in general, we're trying to play her in round 1. She is a Harmony card herself. Also, whenever she is on the board, any Scoia'Tael unit categories that we've not yet played get boosted in our hand. So she's basically like the opposite of Harmony. Rather than getting boosted whenever you play a unique Scoia'Tael card, your unique cards are getting boosted while they're in your hand. That actually synergizes with both Harmony and hand buff. So we actually are a bit of a hybrid between Harmony and hand buff, which gives us some nice flexibility between having the power to succeed in long rounds with those big Harmony engines, but also slam down some big point slams in shorter rounds using those cards that we did all the hand buff on. So Denna can do some of that hand buff. We do, of course, also have the Mysteries of Loc Feainn scenario, which is a humongous Harmony synergy card, of course. We also have the other new card from the Sacred and Profane expansion that just came out, Quarixis, which is also a Harmony card, and in general, that's the archetype that it's supporting. And whenever we play another relic, we will spawn and play Loc Feainn Convergence, which is that last card that you usually just get from the Harmony scenario. So basically, that means you're getting a free Harmony finishing card, one that will proc whatever Harmonies you have on the board. So we like to do this in round 2 or round 3 in general, because that's when we're going for that long round Harmony setup. And because we have, with our leader ability, access to at least one other relics card, that is a way to get bonus procs from that. And we also have an interesting way to tie those two synergies together that we were just talking about with Torque, because although Torque does not have Harmony, he is a relic, which is normally a very difficult category to get for Harmony outside of Denna herself. But even if we already have Denna on the board, then Torque, because he's a relic, will trigger that Loc Feainn Convergence from Quarixis, and therefore still gives us a great way to activate all of our Harmony engines. Of course, the other thing that Torque does is he is the primary way to help set up additional hand buff, and so with him, he works really well when combined with Denna. Technically, Denna is a relic, so is Torque, so that means that when we play Denna, Torque is not going to get boosted. All the other stuff in our hand is probably going to get boosted, so it's not quite perfect, but it still supports, in general, the hand buff boosting archetype. Of course, the primary beneficiary of that is Aglais. So Aglais will get boosted from potentially both Torque and Denna. And so she is fantastic for either a short round when you need a point slam, and we aren't investing as much in Aglais as you might in a full-blown hand buff deck, so you don't need to be as concerned about when you play her. So whenever you need the tempo, you can break her out. But the longer round 1 goes, the longer you have Denna setting her up, the easier it is to turn Aglais into a very powerful card. Other than that, Triss Butterflies help us get Aglais or one of those other key cards in our hand, but for the most part, outside of that, we're just spamming Harmony cards, so nothing that you haven't seen here before. So basically, just spam your Harmony. We do have some additional hand buff with Hawker Smuggler, a human, which is not something we have a lot of in this deck, and it's a unique category, so it is helpful for Harmony for that purpose as well. Sorceress of Dol Blathanna, another potential recipient of the hand buff, because it helps make her order ability more powerful and or makes it so that it's harder for our opponents to shut her down. And also, if some of your cards that have powerful abilities get shut down with Lock, then she has one way to potentially at least give you purification. Then again, more of the Harmony, and in this case, a little bit of thinning, and Dwarves just looking for more of the different unique categories for Scoia'Tael. Mahakam Defender, another potential recipient of that hand buff, because that will turn him into an engine. Pyrotechnician, more dwarfs, have a few more of them just so that we have a little more reliability to get the thinning out. And Witcher Adept, our only Witcher, and therefore another good way late on in a round where we're playing a bunch of Harmony to get a bunch of boosts on those. And of course, Chameleon is humongous for that purpose as well. And Hawker support, again, not a lot of humans in this deck, so even though it doesn't have Harmony, it is a way to proc Harmony, and a great way to combine either with Torque or Aglais directly to get even more hand buff going on. So that's what we're looking for in this deck. It is a really interesting combination of Harmony and hand buff, and what I like most about that is that the strengths of one complement the weaknesses of the other, giving us a lot of flexibility. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and we'll go first. Alright, so let's see, we have our scenario. That's obviously a pretty huge card for us. We also have Quarixis, which, when combined with Torque, gives us at least one guaranteed way to trigger that, plus our leader ability could be a second. We'd like to get, I think, the combination of Aglais plus Denna in hand, so let's maybe get rid of some of our weaker cards here, like Pyrotechnician. Gives us more hand boosting, which would make it useful. To do that combo, Triss Butterflies can give us one of those cards. It's potentially a little more hand boosting, but I think we'll still swap you out. Chameleon is more harmony. Between Triss and Curse Scroll, we could still make it happen. And I think those are pretty clearly the two cards that we want to see here. You and you. So we want to use Triss to get Aglais, because that way we get Aglais in hand without actually playing her. And it also gives Aglais a boost as well, so that's definitely nice too. Let's get rid of maybe the Half-Elf Hunter or the Chameleon, because I don't think we're really going to be doing much with Harmony in this match. And actually, we will get hand boosting on some of these cards, so we want to have a wide variety of cards in terms of the type, the base Scoia'Tael type. But with the Chameleon, since we were going to end up replaying that eventually, the boost doesn't really matter. The boost is going to end up coming from Denna, who is going to be our next play. Sorceress. Gonna have something with shields. Okay, now we go Curse Scroll, and we use this to get you. And we will put back, I think, the Half-Elf Hunter. So, Denna really is amazing. She's almost like a scenario in and of herself, because as we are about to see, that's a whole lot of boosts. That's a whole lot of boosts. She is a relic, and Torque is a relic, so since we already control one of that category, that's why Torque is not getting boosted, which is a little unfortunate, of course, because Torque is perhaps the card, other than Aglais, that we are most interested in getting boosted. We also already have Triss, who's a human, so we're not getting the Smuggler or the support boosted up here, but those are the cards we're going to play next anyway. Combo they were looking for was with Immortals. That makes sense. We're not necessarily focusing that much on round one here, since we are getting a ton of carryover every turn now. So we would like this round to go on for quite a bit in order to maximize the value of all that boosting. Vandegrift is the other card I was expecting them to use. Now we can go Hawker Supports. Use that to either boost up Torque. Unfortunately, as I was saying, because Denna does not boost up Torque, it would only happen if we happen to get a lucky one from the Smuggler, and that didn't happen. So since the support gives extra boost to cards that are already boosted, we should go for Aglais here, since that is our preferred target other than Torque. So every turn, we're getting at least one, potentially two, additional boosts on Aglais between Denna and the Smuggler. Alright, they're going to go Centurion Knight, which does not have enough damage to remove. So that's not an issue. The issue here is that they've focused a lot more on putting up points in this round than we have. So, yes, we could. Really wanted to, we could drop an Aglais, which, the longer we wait, the stronger she becomes. It's pretty late to drop a scenario, but that is potentially something we could consider doing. Because even if we were to do that, we could still go Antherion on our next turn. That's a Harmony card that's already received a fair bit of boost. And the Weeping Willow as well. I mean, Antherion maybe is a middle ground of sorts, where it gives us some tempo, it gives us an engine and creates a second engine with its order ability, which we could then, through slamming Weeping Willow, still get some pretty solid value from. So that might be the play here. And it does mean that we're not going to want to play Mysteries of Loc Feainn in this round in that case. Alright, so Nero. So the question here is, how ambitious are they? Oh, and they'll go for the Death Blow on the Hawker Smuggler. Unfortunate, because I was about to give it Harmony, and it was going to get boosted after doing that. So we lose some of our hand boosting there, and they're getting aggressive with their leader ability as well. Okay, I mean, as I was saying, we don't need to win this round because we have the carryover from that hand buffing that we've been doing. They are going to get the carryover from Vandegrift, though, so that is still not great in that case. They've done enough on that turn to, I think, make it quite difficult for us to pass them with Weeping Willow, because we can set up the Harmony on one other person, so we're getting, what, 1, 2, and a third Harmony proc, plus the 10-point Willow, which is still not enough for us to catch them, and we do need to catch them on this turn, otherwise we're in trouble. I mean, we could break out leader ability, but I really don't want to do that here. So I think we're just leaning on the carryover, which we will still get a little bit more of from Denna if we pass here. So that means they'll take the round 1 win. And now we both have 1 throwaway card here. The difference maker is they have a 6-point advantage because they had the carryover from Vandegrift, so we are probably going to need to play one of our cards that got all that hand buffing in the previous round. Might even need to be Aglais, because they could just play 1 high-tempo card, pass, and then we'd have to catch them with 1 card. So I do like the thinning from Mahakam Volunteers. I'm just not sure we can afford to take a slow approach by playing a low-tempo Dwarf to combine with that. So I think we're looking to swap some of these out. Okay. Not ideal. Yeah, I think that's a throwaway. They're just making this Vandegrift as big as possible. Unfortunately, it is just big enough that Weeping Willow alone is insufficient. So it probably does mean it's going to have to be Aglais here. Otherwise, I don't think anything else could do it unless if we use leader ability, but I'd like to combine leader ability and Quarixis with all of our relics, Torque. So yeah, I think it is you. And so if you're a dedicated hand buff deck, then of course you would not be terribly thrilled about dropping Aglais in round 2, but that's the benefit, is Aglais was a little bonus we had. Although they do reach that resilience, they will get Vandegrift carrying over into the next round as well, so that's well done. But the Aglais definitely paying dividends here. Alright, and so now we're looking at going all out on the Harmony this round. And we have a lot of dwarves. And the thinning at this point is not all that impactful. I mean, technically speaking, if we have 2 dwarves in hand, then that's 8 points, which is not terrible. But I think we just settle for you and only you, in all likelihood. Antherion does mean we get a second beast, which is a little unfortunate. I'd definitely like to see the Chameleon. Okay, so I think in that case, it's going to be, what, probably Scenario first, then Quarixis plus leader ability on our next turn, and then we're just spamming Harmony for the rest of the round, basically. I mean, technically, we'd like to proc that 1 turn later. Or we'd like to proc this as late as possible, so... yeah, okay. Either way, it's this first. Either way, it's this first. And they will banish our Scenario. We do still get the 9-point body on the board, so not terrible for that reason, but of course, the more Harmony synergies we could get, the better. So we will proceed with our other Harmony cards here. Alright, Squire. I mean, they are Royal Inspiration, so I would not rule out that they could have Damsel in Distress. Let's see, for other Harmony, though, actually don't have that much. We do have Lake Guardian, which, technically speaking, because we've already played a Beast, would be kind of good to get you down as well. Just get more Harmony on the board, because Beast is not gonna limit how many procs we get from other stuffs. So let's do this. And we will give the extra... yeah, I suppose we'll give the extra Harmony proc to you as well. Alright, it's Knight Errant, so yep, at least some additional knights. Do they have a scenario to go along with that? That's the question. Alright, so now... traditional Harmony, we have Weeping Willow, and we have Quarixis. I think we want to go Quarixis plus leader toward the end of the round, because that gives us what is functionally an extra Harmony finishing card. So I think that means it's Weeping Willow first. Alright, now it is Damsel in Distress, okay. For another Squire. And now we're gonna, ideally, wait a little bit on this order ability, and at 11 points, unless they break out one of the dueling knights. You should remain relatively safe for the time being. But now let's go for Quarixis. And, I mean, technically speaking, yeah, we'd like to get as much harmony on the board as quickly as possible. So it should be you. And it should be this as well. And this will give us an extra unit of some variety to trigger our harmony, and it should be the fledgling, because I think we had a unit for the various other types that we saw there. We were going to end up playing a dwarf, we were going to end up playing an elf at some point. Alright, Redanian Knight. One of the targets of their grace, you have to imagine at some point. So now, at this point, maybe we go Sorceress, and we could potentially set her up with Witcher Adept on our next turn. We'd also like to get the Berserker out here early enough to still get the damage from that. Chameleon, we want to make sure we have time for that as well. I mean, I suppose the Sorceress is not super time sensitive in that way. So maybe it's easier to work backward. You're going to be the last play. You could be the second to last play, and then you're just not going to get boosted. In that case, that gives us time for the Vitality. Gives us plenty of time for you. Yeah, I guess something like that. Or, I mean, that's still enough time for the Berserker as well. All right. In that case, we'll use you here. All right, and here's the Maiden Shield. So now they're getting a little more ambitious. And that will trigger the last chapter of Damsel. And their leader ability they can potentially use a little bit more if they time it well, which they might be able to do with Maiden Shield. They can on the next turn. Alright, so we could use Sorceress here, or we could use this turn to go Witcher Adept, but I think at this point, yeah, somebody's not quite going to get full value. Yeah, sure, we'll just focus on the harmony for now. And do you have anything in this row? You do. We have a Naiad, we do. Dryad, really. And actually, you can be helpful if we give the Vitality from the Witcher Adept. We can do that on our last turn if we really want to. And that way we still have the ability to absorb all those boosts. But the question is, do they have some crazy high-tempo Grace domino effects they can still trigger here? Not an ideal place for that Knight Errant, because there wasn't a boosted unit on the other side of it, but as we were seeing, yeah, that was worth a lot of stuff. Worth a lot of points right there. So now let's go, I think we go Dwarf Berserker is, yeah, the most time sensitive at this stage. And you're, okay, good. No one was going to say, I didn't double check to see if you were coincidentally going to be a dwarf. Okay, you're a machine, that'll be fine. And so waiting to use this order ability, that is one thing that we're holding onto that will give us additional value. Unfortunately, we hit the card that gets boosted when it loses its shield. Alright, Oniro. Into Arendite. How long have they been leading for? It's not worth that much, but it looks like they're going after the Chameleon, which we got some, but not as many procs out of as we would have liked. So now let's go Witcher Adept. And I think we'll just use you to put you... Well, we do need to put you in the range row. Gotta put you in between some big cards. Give the Vitality here. And then just absorb it all. So last turn, our finisher is going to be Torque, which will trigger the extra finishing card with Quarixis. Almost like we have a mini scenario of sorts, and we'll also use Weaving Willow. So I think it's going to be pretty close. So Torque obviously doesn't have the hand boosting at all, which is odd, but he does still serve a very important purpose. Because he does give us this convergence. And for this purpose, let's see, melee row. The Dwarven Chariot is the best option, right? Nothing to hand boost You're too slow. Yeah. It's that, and then it is this. Okay, that means we have a 32 point lead, so that's pretty solid. Can they catch us with this last card, though? It's Mad Charge, so I don't think so, even with all those procs. So we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and they'll go first. Alright, so we have Denna in hand, and that is one of the key cards we'd love to build around, and especially combining her with Aglais, who we don't have, but we can get that with Triss, so that's definitely nice as well. Love to see our scenario. We do have enough dwarves to set up the Mahakam Volunteers. This could be a potential recipient. In fact, yes, we're fine with this being a recipient of the hand boosting from Denna, so in that case, probably prefer you to the Berserker. And the Harmony, we'd probably like to just save that for a later round. In fact, let's get rid of you. Unless, well, that's really unfortunate. Okay, well, I mean, I guess I did kind of ask for it. Fair enough. Should have just settled. That's why we wanted the thinning in the first place, so that we would not have this happen to us. But, alas. Okay. So, first, let's actually go... Yeah, I guess if we go Denna first, there's some risk that she gets answered before we even get Aglais in her hand. Otherwise, we could play it a little bit safer and go Aglais first, or get Aglais into our hand first with Triss. That way we guarantee that we at least get one turn of Denna boosting Aglais, but I think, you know, if Denna's going to get answered immediately, she's going to get answered immediately. We're at least going to get some hand buff on Aglais through Triss, so don't really think that's the deciding factor. Because there is at least the initial hand buff. Actually, we can put you back into our deck with Triss, so that's not the end of the world. Okay, that is fine in that case. So now let's use Triss. No problem. Put one of you back and get Aglais. So Aglais gets the boost from Triss, and now we should still continue to get hand buff here. And just a few turns of Denna, and already we have a ton of value coming from her. Okay, they're gonna give some boost to Pastodi. Don't see him too often nowadays. Alright, so let's see. I think we might just go Mahakam Defender. It is an engine, so that means that it's getting one boost per turn, whether it's in her hand or on the board. Or technically, it means one less boost per turn in her hand for the Volunteers, but we want to get this thinning anyway. So we can do that, and then that gives us a little more time for Sorceress to get boosted up as well, so that even if she gets damaged, she's still capable of giving us some decent specials. Because now that we have a dwarf on the board, that means Denna is no longer boosting up the Volunteers. Okay, so let's use the Volunteers now to get that thinning. That way we don't accidentally get those both in our hand. And we will still get a lot of hand buff here. Alright, it's Squire. So we've mostly just been doing setup here thus far. But now we can begin to play some of the stuff that's been receiving many of those boosts, like you. Deliberately trying to avoid the range road to the extent that we can in case they have reinforced trebuchets, but at this point, I mean, I guess the Sorceress would not be the card to suddenly start playing in the range road in case that does get hit. It's up at 8 power, so even if it does get a small bit of damage, it should still be relatively okay. And they could hit it with Eggman if they'd like to. Well, that's... Alright, fair enough. I suppose I challenged you, and you did, in fact, have the answer you needed, just barely. Okay, so we could still go a little bit longer here. In fact, the longer this round goes, of course, the more of the hand buff we're getting from Denna. She's more effective at the beginning of the round when she has more cards in her hand to do the boosting toward. So it's not that big of a deal, but of course getting a few extra boosts on Aglais is nice. But basically what we'd be looking at, half-elf hunter, we'd be looking at starting to get into Harmony, basically. I mean, Sirssa does potentially give us pretty good chance she gives us the hand boost on... I'll tell you what, we do this, Yes, we start going Harmony late on in the round, which is not ideal. We would normally like to save that for later round, but usually we are not that competitive in round 1 since it's mostly just set up for the hand buff. Let's see. And so, yes, we're going to take damage from the bleed, which means we do need to play here. We're going to get 1 boost on you, but we have 1 more bleed. So, yes, we're going to need to play 1 more card if we want to win this round. I think that's still okay. Yes, we're investing a lot with Sirssa just because she was the recipient of a whole lot of that hand buff. But since with her, we can win round 1 and also get the hand buff on either Torque and pass that over to Aglais or just directly on Aglais, I think that's still decent. Doesn't matter who we hit. Trigger the harmonies as well, so we'll win round 1 in that case. Take a little bit more damage, but we're still fine. And it also means more time for Denna, a little bit more time for Denna to boost up Aglais. Oh, technically not, because Sirssa was Dryad. Either way. So now here's an interesting question. We are down a card. We could try to push. Carried in large part by a 10-point boosted Aglais, which is more than we tend to see. Or, and obviously, scenario, and we have just enough harmony to make that happen. I mean, we do generally like a long round for that stuff, but maybe going against Shieldwall. Huh. I mean, I do like this hand. We have enough harmony. Maybe we can swap you out and see if we can get something a little bit better. Well, I mean, it is more hand buff. It's not really what I was hoping we'd get. Probably would have preferred the card we had previously. I was looking for Quarixis mostly. Yeah, that's really or Percival. So, something to be said for dropping Aglais here. Just for huge tempo and daring them to catch us. I mean, if we were on even cards, that'd probably be worth doing, but we aren't. So, best case scenario there, we just force them to be on even cards in round 3, and we can do that by dry passing here anyway. So, I think we still dry pass. Oh, but okay. Siri Nova still get a fair bit of carryover in that case. Alright, and so we get Percival, who is, of course, a fantastic harmony engine. The hand buff would have been nice in round 1, but I think is not as useful here, or at least not for the Smuggler, because this is a card we normally want to play early, but we're going to be focusing on playing harmony cards early, and you would be a harmony finisher. Speaking of harmony finishers, double Chameleon is not bad. We could still keep you to boost up Torque, or in this case, his Torque isn't already boosted, potentially Aglais. Actually, Torque is not useful when we do not have Quarixis. I was going to say that's bad. I was just inviting for that to be Quarixis, but... Alright, it's Reynard. So... We'll get the carryover from Ronvid. They had the carryover from Ciri. You'll give a little bit of long-term value. So, with no Quarixis, how does that change things? I think that means we may be looking at a slightly earlier leader ability, but either way, it is probably still going to be scenario first. Then we'll go Percival, basically just prioritizing harmony over everything else, at least initially. And so you'll see who can out-engine whom. You should probably avoid the row sacking if possible, just in case of Yrden. Yes, there's a chance of reinforced trebuchets, but they seem to be more of a boosting Knights deck than a damaging deck, so I don't really think that's a concern. More than anything, we might see a Duelist Knight, is probably what this Shieldwall is theoretically for. Let's do that. Does also proc the next chapter of the scenario. Do we want to go leader ability now, or do we want to go Antherion first? Might go Antherion first. And actually want to get the order on it, and then go leader ability. And a Stringer for more boosting. She's inspired, and they put the shield wall on her, okay? I mean, not a terrible option. Makes sense. Now, let's do you. And here we get the Loc Feainn Convergence. And we just want to make sure that we are not playing a card that we are that has a type that we are about to use. So we already have beasts. Technically, we should have... Oh, we have a whole bunch of beasts. Okay. So what are our options here? Elf, Witcher, Dwarf. We are not about to play any of those, are we? They have a whole bunch of cards in this row. So the Saboteur is nice. I wish it was not Ronvid on the end. It'd be much better if it wasn't. We could remove your shield. They still have Shieldwall. So, you know, it's not like that's going to make a huge difference, but it does force them to use another charge. So, pure damage on Roach, remove the shield on Windhelm, not much else. I'm going to do that. It's not as ambitious. Definitely not as ambitious. But I'm basically betting on them having some specific cards that they really wanted to use Shieldwall on, and this not being one of them. Granted, one boost on him is going to be enough for them to get his race ability back, but either way. Okay, so now let's... I mean, we can turn you into a Harmony card if we want to, and why not, I guess? So now, since we already have a beast on the board, we should technically stack our beast Harmony cards, which means Dusk Aspect would be next on the list. And now it is okay for us to play Leader ability. Garrick City Guard, is it just for the boosts, or are they trying to do something clever and line up a bunch of our cards for something like Yrden? That I'm not as sure about. But, okay. We want to use you, and then we're going to be spamming Chameleons after that. In fact... Now, we might even... We technically even want to play Chameleon this... I mean, we want to get the Harmony on the board either way. Okay, so there's that. Then it's Leader ability as well. So that is now all the Harmony units. But we are going to trigger Harmony repeatedly with our Chameleons, and then we'll also use Hawker support at the end to boost up Aglais. Range Road Donimir. Usually you do that early to set up a Visigoda, but presumably not what they're going for. It's going to be Onsace is what that's for. Have to imagine. Okay, so now it's you. Might, for that reason, need to activate Weeping Willow a little bit early. We'd like to wait on it, because that would normally mean that we'll get a few more unique categories on the board, make that order ability a little bit stronger, but if we wait too long, if they get out on Sace, which I imagine they are about to do... No! Ache. Surely you don't have Zeal. Okay. Just making sure. Just making sure. Alright, so he's gonna destroy something big. And if we click on the Weeping Willow, it's probably going to be that. In fact, if we don't click on the Weeping Willow, we can spare him from Ache, which technically might even be the right choice. It's either that or it's going to be Percival. They're probably going to end up being pretty close, numbers-wise. So, take your pick. Alright, either way, though, we should be doing this. As well as this. And the longer we wait on Weeping Willow, the stronger it becomes. Again, something here is getting answered. Possibly multiple things. There's some risk of them having a lock or some other form of control. So I guess we'll take our chances not using Weeping Willow yet. And presumably Ache's going to be on Percival. Immortals. That's awfully late. They might not have a consistent way to remove the shield. So maybe... it's a bit of a brick here by the looks of things. Yeah, because they're using their last Leader ability charge on Reynard, of all things. Well, it does get him up to Grace 12. So that does work in that way. And let's go Hawker. Boost up Aglais. So she will be, assuming none of these turn into Random Dryad, which would be unfortunate, then she'll be something that not only triggers all of our harmonies, but also obviously activates her own ability, which is also nice. That's unfortunate, but we'll use this Chameleon before we play Aglais, if I remember, on our next turn. Hopefully I do. Okay, so technically, again, playing Weeping Willow on our next turn after using Aglais is the correct order of operations, assuming they don't have two forms of control, one for Percival and one for you, but we'll see. I think Percival is still going to be bigger even after using this. All right, but they're moving it into this row, which is very suspicious. I mean, I guess they could have gotten one more point out of you. They do not have anything to remove with Tirak Knight, or Sentry Knight, rather. They do remove with Ake, and it is Percival. Oh, actually, no, that was smart. That was actually very smart. Yeah, I honestly was not even thinking about the movement to break Weeping Willow. Wow, well played. I did not see that. Okay, so we technically using this order ability is going to destroy this Chameleon, but it's worth it because that way we are still getting the extra proc on Aglais. They have taken the lead. And with that Weeping Willow brick, I think we're still good here because we have some nice finishers, but we... oh no, you are still alive. Okay, we're good, we're good. As long as you don't turn into a Dryad. You don't. Okay, so let's play you while we still can and not risk anyone else turning into a Dryad. So here are the Harmony procs, and so that means we have, in fact, taken the win. Well, we have that lead, so just make sure, Aglais triggers, and we will hold on for the win. All right, so going up against monsters here, and they'll go first. And let's see, so we have Aglais in hand. We have Triss, who we could use to give us some other cards of interest. Probably Denna would be the highest priority. Then, other than that, we have some hand boosting with the Smuggler, which is what we'd kind of like to do in round one. Otherwise, we have a lot of harmony, which is not necessarily what we're trying to do in round one specifically. So maybe we dump the Half-Elf Hunter and no other dwarves, right? So not really the setup we're looking for there. I mean, Percival does give us more harmony. So we might need to do at least a little bit of that. All right, it's Wild Hunt Rider. Obviously, they have dominance here. All right, so I think we start with Triss Butterflies, and we will use this to put back... I mean, we have good cards in our hand. It's just that they aren't necessarily the ones that we're trying to use in round one. So I think we might get rid of Lake Guardian and instead replace that with Denna. She'll be what we play next turn. And then that'll give us some hand buff. Yeah, especially because we had multiple beasts in our hand. Actually, I forget if Denna will boost multiple units of the same category if you haven't played them yet. Or if she just chooses one of them. Okay, so we don't really need to play anymore in the range row. So that's, well, I mean, probably going to have Frost they're going to use in the melee row as well. So maybe we do continue to play there. Well, we're going to need to play in the melee row with Hawker Smuggler anyway. So yeah, we'll go melee row for the time being. So it's you. Got the boosts from Triss, and the important part is that at the end of our turn, she will boost almost everything in our hand. Ooh, that is very well done, though. Okay, so we still got some value out of it. Actually, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points worth of hand buff out of it. So it's still not terrible. Obviously, the longer she went unlocked, the better. But might even be able to unlock her with Sorceress, depending on what we get there. So that is really tempting. If we use this, I'm almost certain they're gonna White Frost it, right? That might have been a reason to abandon Hawker's Smuggler. But maybe we try still on this turn. What's a higher priority? Sorceress is probably a higher priority. If we put you here, then that doesn't work with their leader ability because they would move you into this row. It would hit Denna rather than hitting the Sorceress, so it would still work unless you use Parasite. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. That works. All right, now it's Hawker Smuggler, and as I said, I do suspect this is going to get moved with their leader ability. But it did hit Torque, so that's a nice little bonus. There is the leader ability, as we thought they might use. Art Geth as well. Okay, so that's probably going to get out. No Winter Queen. Okay, have we seen anything that's not Devotion? Oh, yeah, we have. We've seen the Artifact Compression, so they are not Devotion. All right, so the tricky thing is we were trying to go for non-harmony stuff with hand buff in particular in round one, and they have shut just about all of that down, even our way to counter their counter. They have shut down because we can no longer purify Denna. So do we abandon ship relatively early here, or do we suddenly try to turn this into a harmony round with something like Percival? He does have armor, which is kind of nice, because he can tank at least one hit. Tell you what, I think we can still do it. It's a little late to be playing Percival, yes, but I think it is still feasible to make this happen, or at least force them into playing something bigger. Alright, it's Apiarian Phantom. That is an engine. Theoretically, ours is a little bit better than theirs. But they are starting with this 15-point advantage here, which, with Antherion, we can get the double harmony proc there. Your harmony is also locked, of course, even if that's not the primary reason why we played you. But it should be possible to catch them on the next turn if they do pass with possibly even Aglais. We could use Antherion up to make Percival a triple harmony if we'd like. Alright, it's Lacerate. I suppose makes sense if they're using weather effects. Yeah, okay, they're getting really aggressive with the leader ability charges now. So, with no Percival anymore, we still catch them in 2 cards if we absolutely needed to. Aglais is not worth much. She unfortunately only got a single boost, so that is kind of painful. She's kind of bricked at this point. We have potentially a little bit of hand buff still remaining in our deck, but not a lot. And Antherion can't really infuse Denna because she's locked, so it won't do anything. So on this play, we're not really getting much tempo regardless of what direction we go in. Weeping Willow would probably be the play. Melee Row still boosts you up, so we'd get 7 additional points. We'd be on 13. Don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough, even if we were to go one more turn and play Aglais after that. Alright, so more harmony here. And we did, of course, play Percival already, so that means we don't have quite as much firepower with the harmony stuff, which is why we're not originally planning to go that route. Double Chameleon, I mean, great if we have a bunch of harmony, but in a slightly shorter round here if they do push, probably not fantastic, and we'd prefer something else as a throwaway. I think we're gonna mulligan Aglais. I mean, we might be able to get slightly more hand buff on Aglais with Sirssa, but it's unlikely. Okay, and they do dry pass. They did play one more card than us in the previous round. I think we'll just use the Mahakam Defender as our throwaway here. One of our weakest cards. Doesn't have the hand buff, so not even set up much. It does technically proc Late Guardian. Just about everything would do that, so we'll leave it at that for now. The one potential benefit to sticking with it would have been Mahakam Volunteers could have been set up, but I still don't think that's really worth it. We were going to have to mulligan Torque unless we drew into Quarixis, and we did, so that's good. Because you don't have a lot of hand buff, but you're a relic, so it does work with you. Let's see, you are a relatively unique category for harmony purposes, so that is nice. So we still have decent harmony going on here. Not amazing. I think we could still try to do better than that. I mean, we can use it on Torque. Torque is already boosted a little bit, so we'll get a little bit more. So it's not terrible, and in fact, do we have any other humans? I don't think we do. Okay, so that's decent in that case. So let's start with our best harmony, which is what? We should go double half-elf hunter first. Alright, Matza. I mean, our low-end cards, if they're unique, yeah, and they are. We do not have a Witcher in our hand. That's actually a pretty valuable card, because that could give us a lot of harmony procs. So let's see. We do want a row stack, unless they have another Lacerate. We've seen they had one. They might have another. We're going to have a lot of units eventually, so we are going to need to fill both rows at some point. It's Ada. They do have dominance. That was an odd choice. And based on how they highlighted the half-elf hunter immediately after that, I do wonder if that was a misclick. Okay, so now more harmony with Sirssa or Weeping Willow. Want to get the harmony down. Let's see, are you our only beast? You are our only beast. At least you're going to get converted into something else, so I think we'll go... Yeah, we would like to wait to play Sirssa and just increase the likelihood that we get the boost on Torque, because I don't think we're getting the death blow. But you're of some value as well. I think it's just Late Guardian, to be honest. And now I'm trying to avoid the row stacking a little bit. But we know there's going to be more frosts. Yeah, okay. Pretty sure there's going to be more frost if we're seeing an Ancient Foglet, even if they've already used all their leader ability charges. So at this point, now let's go Weeping Willow. We're going to go melee row because we don't have the poison. We are just going for the pure boosts. More Harmony procs here. And so we will go leader ability, but I'm waiting to play the relics until basically immediately after we use you, because I don't want you to get answered before we get the chance to play all our relics. Okay, so our Geth hits both rows, since we must have seen that in the previous round. So again, we're eventually going to need to play in this row, but for the most part, we should be trying to row stack unless they break out another last raid on us. So let's see. More Harmony. At this point, Sirssa is fine. I mean, we could have played her earlier. It's just that I wanted to get rid of more cards in our hand, so even if we don't get the death blow, we at least increase the probability of getting the hand buff on Torque. Still pretty unlikely, but it is an option. Or it is a little bit better here. A little more likely to work in our favor. Yes, we'll hit you. That ends up going on you, so doesn't make a difference after all. And that is going to be our last Harmony card, so that is going to come next. Squirrel shouldn't matter. Don't think we have anything in our graveyard that's going to make a difference here. So now let's go for you. And then it's going to be leader ability as well. Because this will give us a relic with Denna, which will give us a Harmony finisher with Convergence. And we have one of you, so we don't want to use this. Well, then we don't really have much choice in the matter, do we? It's going to be Dwarf. Okay, we don't have any Dwarves in hand, so that's good. That is truly an extra proc. Cleaver's Muscle has the shield. I'm wondering if that can help us tank a hit of the Frost, but it seems unlikely. I mean, otherwise this does nothing, so I guess we might as well do that. So sure, we'll put it in here in case you end up getting hit, and this does turn into the highest unit in that row at some point. Next is going to be the Chameleon spam. Or, well, I mean, Frost is now over anyway, but... Alright, so... maybe that means it's a little bit safer to not row stack as much. So the hand buff on this Chameleon is going to end up going away, because it's going to get replayed every turn, but that is still worth doing, because it's going to proc all of our Harmonies, which we have a lot of. Alright, and Sierden, yeah, that's the other downside of row stacking. That's going to hit pretty hard. We do still have a lot more Harmony procs left, so thankfully Sierden has been nerfed, and they had to play it on this turn, otherwise it would have been much weaker, so it's not like it's an insta-win for them. Now we should go Cat Witcher, because this will give us the Vitality with at least some time to benefit from it, technically speaking, since we row stacked melee row. No, we could still do this, right? Because it's based on the number of units in this row, so let's put it on one of our Harmony engines that is a little bit weaker, like the Half-Elf Hunter. Okay, and we obviously didn't use the Weeping Willow ability yet either, and that was one of the reasons why. We're also still getting more units on the board of different categories. Okay, but they're going to Heat Wave. I didn't even see which one it was they went for. The Aspect one. So now we go Hawker. So, oh, technically, Hawker support was going to be to boost Torque, and then Torque was going to give us boost on other cards. So either we're going to miss the extra little bonus hand buff on Torque giving to someone else, or we're going to miss the Vitality on you. Technically, prioritizing Torque would have been better. Technically speaking. There's more Harmony buffs. And because Torque is a relic, well, they realized they can't catch us. This was going to give us another Convergence, and we still had the Order ability on our Willow as well, so they forfeit. So there's a look at the Scoia'Tael Harmony deck using cards from the new Sacred and Profane expansion. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.